Hello, Monetization Nation. This is a Sunday episode, and I am your host, Nathan Gwilliam. And today we're going to talk about how to let go of the past and focus on the future. So, entrepreneurs, are you like me at all? Do you ever make a mistake and then hold on to the mistake and let that mistake hold you back from focusing on the future? That's what we're going to talk about today. There was a company named Rovio Entertainment. They're a video game development company, and they were founded in 2013, and they launched 51 games that were not successful, 51 games that failed to be popular, but they continued to focus on the next game, and their 52nd game was Angry Birds. Angry Birds was a wild success. By 2015, Angry Birds had been downloaded more than 3 billion times collectively. In 2015, they launched Angry Birds 2, which has already generated more than $600 million. Rovio didn't let their failures define them. They learned from their failures and they pushed forward and they focused on the future. They focused on the next game. So we as entrepreneurs need to learn from this. We need to identify our mistakes. We need to recognize them and learn from them. And then we need to move on and focus on the future. The author of 3 Routes to Healing said, number 1, you must let pain visit. Number 2, you must allow it to teach you. And number 3, you must not allow it to overstay. So it's very important that after we've acknowledged the mistake, after we've learned from it, that we've got to move on. Jeffrey Holland said, quote, "The past is to be learned from, but not lived in. We look back to claim the embers from glowing experiences, but not the ashes. And when we have learned what we need to learn and have brought with us the best we have experienced, then we look ahead. We remember that faith is always pointed towards the future," unquote. In the Bible, in the book of Genesis, chapter 19, it tells the story of Lot and his family. And God warned Lot that the city he and his family lived in, Sodom and Gomorrah, was going to be destroyed, and commanded he and his family to flee. In Genesis 19, 15 and 17, it says, "And when the morning arose, and the angels hastened Lot, saying, Arise, take thy wife and thy 2 daughters, which are here, lest thou be consumed in the iniquity of the city. And it came to pass, when they had brought them forth abroad, that he said, Escape for thy life, look not behind thee, neither stay thou in all the plain. Escape to the mountain, lest thou be consumed." So Lot was not just commanded to flee, but he was specifically commanded to not look back. While Lot and his wife fled to the mountains, Lot's wife ignored those instructions, and she looked back. In verse 26, it says, quote, "But his wife looked back behind him, and she became a pillar of salt," unquote. Later in the New Testament, when Christ teaches his disciples, he cautions to remember Lot's wife, and that's in Luke 17:32. So what did Lot's wife do that was so wrong in this situation? She focused on the past. Instead of focusing on the future, she was dwelling on where she had come from and the past. Jeffrey Holland said, quote, "To be perennially dissatisfied with present circumstances and have only dismal views of the future, and to miss the here and now and tomorrow because we are so trapped in the there and then and yesterday are some of the sins of Lot's wife," unquote. As entrepreneurs, we don't want to waste our time longing for what once was or regretting what happened in the past, the things that we cannot change. Dwelling on the past inhibits us from progressing in the present and moving towards the future. C.S. Lewis said, "You can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending." Instead of focusing on what was, we should focus on what can be. So Airbnb is a great example of a company that made some mistakes, but learned from those mistakes and moved on. In 2015, Airbnb was accused of racial profiling and discrimination. Instead of ignoring or dwelling on those mistakes, Airbnb acknowledged them, took ownership of them. They addressed the issue in an email from their CEO, and then they learned from them and focused on improving. They took a much stronger stance against discrimination with an inclusion campaign. The source for that is Forbes. They recognized what they did was wrong, and they took action to right those wrongs, and then they focused on the future. And today, the vast majority of Airbnb users have no idea that problem existed in the past. Jeffrey Holland said, quote, "Faith is for the future. Faith builds on the past but never longs to stay there. Faith trusts that God has great things in store for each of us and that Christ is truly the, quote, high priest of good things to come," unquote. And that's from Hebrews 9:11. When we look to the future, we show God that we're putting our trust in him. Joel Osteen, the author of Your Best Life Now, 7 Steps to Living at Your Full Potential, said, quote, "You must make a decision that you are going to move on. It won't happen automatically. You'll have to rise up and say, I don't care how hard this is. I don't care how disappointed I am. I'm not going to let this get the best of me. I'm moving on with my life," unquote. So here are some of my key takeaways from this episode. Number 1, the past is to be learned from, but not lived in. Number 2, we should remember Lot's wife. Her attachment to the past outweighed her confidence in the future. We should also avoid that mistake. Number 3, we can't go back and change the past, but we can start where we are and change the future. Number 4, we should forgive and forget. We should let people repent, let ourselves repent, and grow and move on. We should believe that people and ourselves can change and improve. Number 5, faith is for the future. When we have faith for the future, we put our trust in God's plan for us. If you enjoyed this episode, you can subscribe to Monetization Nation on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, our Facebook group, and on your favorite podcast platform. Thanks for joining me for this episode. I wish you success on letting go of the past and focusing on the future.